Welcome to an introduction to online fundraising. Every Wales group that signs up to the Wales programme, I'll typically try and meet you, and then we'll do an hour to an hour and a half training session together. So today is a 30-minute version of that session. So there are bits that we would go into more detail with if we met up in person. But this hopefully is a really good overview so that you know everything you can do, and then anything you need further help with, I can always help with that. So why fundraise online in the first place? Essentially, online fundraising refers to anything where the money is collected digitally. That can be through the internet, it can be through mobile, but local giving specifically focuses through raising money through the internet. And essentially, online fundraising is just really useful because the Wales groups, in particular, they found it it's a really good source of unrestricted funding. So when you're always looking for pots of money to replace grants or that maybe grants to cover, something like online fundraising can really fill the gap with that. And generally, online fundraising is, higher than an offline donation as well. You put your spare change in a donation bucket, but online, people always round their donation up to the nearest pound, £5. So it's naturally higher as well. Online is a crazy amount that's been given now in the UK. So 2.4 billion, a quarter of all donations are given online now. So it's something that's really worthwhile for Wales groups to look into. The internet is very much used by every different age group as well. So kind of whoever a group works with, it's really worthwhile then having a good look into it because it's really relevant for what you're doing. So local giving generally, we are a membership-based organisation. We cover the whole of the UK. Our help desk team is based in London, and anyone across the UK can become a member, have access to a donation page, support, match funds. But in certain parts of the UK, we then also run programmes that offer specific help and also a lot more benefits as well. So one of those parts is Wales. We've done similar programmes in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northwest England, and there's also a couple running currently in part of London and Bristol, Bath and Frome and West of England. So local giving is really committed to specifically helping smaller community-based groups. Everything we do is targeted towards that. We are a not-for-profit ourselves, so everything we do completely goes into providing for those groups. So 2 years ago, we started the Wales programme. At that point, there were 250 spaces available for Wales groups. Those 250 spaces were full. All of those groups are training and they're all doing really, really well with online fundraising. We've now managed to secure further funding so that as of August 2018, 100 more Wales groups could tap into the same level of support. And, those places are now starting to be filled as well. I can see that some of you in participating here are already members of those 100, which is really great. This is a really good first touch for understanding what you can get through local giving. Essentially, through the programme, you have a year of free help. So that can take the form of a training session, it can be phone calls, it can be whatever support that you need for your group throughout that first 12 months of membership. Some groups literally just want to meet up once and then they're ready to run. Other groups will have, want contact once every week. Wherever you stand, that's absolutely fine. There are lots of different things you can do through local giving, which I'll run through in a minute. But we also give Wales groups £200 of match funding when they sign up. And that essentially means that the first £200 that you raise through your online donation page, and we can help you to make that page as well. But the first £200 of donations are automatically doubled. So, for example, someone could give you £2 and it becomes £4. It just gives you a really good excuse to get in touch with people and let them know that you've got this great donation page and anything they're able to give you can be doubled as well. And it really helps you get off the ground with that. And then local giving UK-wide also offers other opportunities for match funding and prizes, which I'll go into in a bit as well. So to sign up for the 100 places, it's a very generous criteria. Basically, you just need to be not-for-profit, you need to benefit Wales, and you need to have a bank account. You don't need to be a registered charity. So if you're concerned at all that you're not eligible, then just let me know. We also give all groups access to gift aid. So even groups that aren't registered charities can claim gift aid through local giving. So you can get 25% extra on your donations, and that's because we have a special relationship with HMRC. So the first step for new members is that they can create an online donation page. Now, you can either do that as part of your registration, or you can wait until you're fully signed up to do that. Some groups prefer to meet before they do that as well. Hopefully everyone here today will have an idea of what makes a good donation page, so that's something you can comfortably get on with. When I do send around the slides later, there are some things in them that are links, so feel free to have a look at the example pages that I put in there later on, in case you need some inspiration. But essentially this here is an example donation page. You can put multiple images, you can put text, you can do a breakdown of different things that your donors can support you, just to make it really tangible, to say £10 will enable us to do this, £20 will enable us to do that. You can completely choose the amounts and what they are. And if someone does want to support you, it's just a case of them clicking any of these buttons. They can donate any random amount, it could be £2.65. They can sign up to support you on a monthly basis as well. And we'll look at this properly in a minute, but they can also sign up to do a fundraiser for you. And it's literally just a case of them clicking the fundraise for us button there. And then they go on to create their page that is automatically linked to your guys' group, so the donation goes straight into your bank account, and the fundraiser doesn't have to worry about getting cash and checks to you as well. So everyone has this page. You can decide what you want the link to be, so it can contain your group's name in there too. The other types of pages you can create, two of them are called appeal pages and fundraiser pages. You can also create another option, which is a project page, and I can always speak to you about this if it's something relevant. Essentially, a project page is if you feel that you've got information that you'd like to share with your donors that you can't necessarily fit on your main page, or you want a whole page that's specifically about that. So, for example, a group that does work with homeless people, but also new mothers, obviously they're completely different types of work, and so it makes sense for them to have a project page for each of them. They can just direct relevant people straight to the relevant page. Some groups have multiple project pages, others have none. If that's something you want to access, then I'll tell you how to create that in a second. Appeal pages, they are perfect if you want to raise money for a specific thing. Almost all local giving groups do appeal pages at some point, if be that once or twice a year or back to back. Essentially, you can choose your own target, and you can choose how long you want to give yourself to raise that target. It's a really good means of using your match funding. Lots of groups instantly have a burst on their target bar there because their match funding has helped boost it. And appeal pages, essentially, the main difference is that they're temporary pages. They'll just last for however long you want. Again, they have their own link you can send people directly to. And because it's something that's time sensitive and there's a sense of urgency about it, then groups often do really well through appeals. It's a different way of asking people to support your main page constantly. So to create an appeal page or to create a project page, it's just a case of logging into your local giving account and going to the My Pages section, and you can do all of that under there. You can also add content to your main donation page through that section as well. Another type of page is a fundraiser page. So they're perfect if individuals want to support you. So anyone that wants to do a challenge for your group, they again can set themselves their own target, their own amount of time to do that. All of these pages are linked to your main page, so donors can easily move between any of them. But essentially, fundraiser pages are really good because they can also access gift aid through us, and they can also unlock your match funding too. So lots of groups will have people doing fundraisers for them, and they've incentivized them to do them in the first place because they've let them know that their donations can be doubled until the £200. The other option with pages is that you can, if you've got a bilingual priority, you can make sure that Welsh is part of your pages. There are a few different ways to do that, and there are a few links of example pages there for you to open up when I send you the slides later. But essentially, at the bottom of every local giving page, there is a Welsh flag, and anyone can click on that, and it will change then all of local giving's bits on your donation page to Welsh. So all of our titles, all of our donate buttons, they'll all be in Welsh, and the donor can also go through the entire donation process in Welsh. So they can click that themselves. Alternatively, you can actually click it, and what you'll see is that your donation page changes. Essentially, it gets a little CY on the end. So that means then you've got a link to your page in Welsh. So some groups will choose to share the link of their page in Welsh and the link of their page in English. Some groups will write everything out on their page, bilingually as well. Essentially, the text you enter stays in whatever language you enter it in. If you need your text to be Welsh, then you need to enter it in Welsh. Other groups will keep their entire front page in English, but maybe create a project page that's entirely in Welsh. So they've got both options as well. If you have any trouble with anything like that, always get in touch, because I understand it's a real priority for groups and we want to help you to do that. So when I mentioned that UK-wide Local Giving does match fund campaigns, we commit to doing 3 a year. We actually end up usually doing more than 3 a year. It depends on how much funding we raise ourselves. Typically, some of those are prize campaigns, so essentially giving you incentives to ask people to either do fundraisers or to donate to you at a particular time. I'm going to cover one of them here, but essentially we'll always let you know about a month in advance exactly what the details are. We've got Grow Your Tenor coming up in just over a month, so we'll be announcing details about this very soon. It typically runs mid-October to mid-November, but it's likely to run from late October this year. And these are the details of what happened last year. It will be of a similar ilk, but it may be slightly different. But essentially, Grow Your Tenor typically offers 2 strands. One of those strands is that your donations can be doubled. Anyone that supports you in that Grow Your Tenor time period can have their donation doubled up to the value of £10. So if they give you £2, it's £4, it's 10, it's 20. Say if someone gave you £30, it would just be increased to 40 because just the first £10 of any donation is doubled. And then the other element is that monthly donations are doubled. So if someone signs up to give your group a monthly direct debit in that Grow Your Tenor time period, then that direct debit last year was doubled for 6 out of the following 12 months. Essentially, from our research, we know that if you can get groups to continue to support you beyond a few months, then they're likely to stay with you for a number of years. And in that sense, giving them an incentive with their match fund, their monthly donation being matched, then that can ensure that they stay with you throughout the year. And then at the end of that 12 months, hopefully they'll think, I haven't missed that £5, and they'll continue to support you as well on an ongoing basis. Whatever the exact details of Grow Your Tenor are this year, it's really worth thinking about the monthly donations aspect, because it's just such a good earner. For example, if you have 10 donors signing up to give you £10 a month, then that's instantly £100 a month, £1,200 a year. And if half of that is doubled, then that's bumped up to 1,800. That's just from 10 donations. So it can be a really, really good earner for your group as well. Last year, we gave each group a limit of £5,000 in match funding. And again, we'll release all the details on what the limits are this year. So that's one example. There are other details on our website, and we'll always tell you more in advance. But whenever a match fund happens, there'll always be resources that you can access. So this here is the dashboard that you can see whenever you log into your Localgiving account once you've finished registration. So my pages here is where I said you can add content to your main page, you can create an appeal page, or you can create a project page there too. My donations here is where you can see anyone that's donated to you. You can download reports if people need to check that against your bank account, and you can also thank donors directly through that as well. My fundraisers here, you can see anyone that's doing a fundraising challenge for you, and you can contact them through that as well. And the My Details section over here, if you've got a couple of staff that you'd like to be able to log into your Localgiving account, then there is an option in there called Invite Other Users. So you can always have a couple of people that have their own login to get in. In particular, a lot of groups would use a finance person who has a login so that they can check the donations against your bank account as well. So the fundraising toolkit, though, is one section that is definitely really worth looking through. It's got loads of things in there, like fundraising ideas, poster templates, all sorts of things. There's also a whole section on donation buttons. It's really, really easy to add the donation button to a website or to a Facebook page. Lots of groups only have Facebook pages, so it's really good to link them up, because then you might get some organic donations as well. But in that fundraising toolkit, every time there's a match fund that happens, there'll be a whole section in there that relates to that match fund. So for example, there'll be a section called Grow Your Tenor, and in that it will have resources such as email templates, posters, social media images, things like that, that perfectly explain what on earth Grow Your Tenor is. So rather than every group on Localgiving trying to come up with their perfect wording and make it visual and clear, you can just spend 2 minutes downloading the resources you want, and then all you need to do is either add in the link to your page or share them with a link to your page. So it's really simple. Essentially, everything we do is to try and save groups time, because we know that you're all so stretched, especially if you're a volunteer already, giving up your time for free as well. Just to make it completely clear, we do take a 5% commission on donations. As I mentioned previously, we are a not-for-profit ourselves, so that just goes a very small way towards covering everything we do for groups. If you're not a registered charity, then obviously you might be losing 5%, you're gaining 25% extra in gift aid that you wouldn't have had. And for those that are registered charities, we'll still aim for every group to unlock hundreds, if not thousands of pounds more of match funding and prizes throughout the year than what you've lost on that 5%. So really, it's the tiniest amount, and every group, just gets so much through local giving, because you just can't get the match funding we offer anywhere else. So obviously, to be able to succeed in any of this, you really need to have a strong donation page, and you really need to think about how you're going to be promoting, that message. Some groups are in the fortunate position where they already have individuals involved in their group ready to ask for support, or perhaps they've supported them already. Examples of that might be if you have someone that tends to dip their hand in their pocket for anything that you're doing, they might be the perfect person to let know about direct debits being doubled to John Grow tenor. Or if there's someone who volunteers for everything going, maybe they'd love to do a fundraiser for you. It's really worth thinking about how existing donors translate to online fundraising in that sense. But essentially, if you're not in that position, and many groups aren't, it's worth thinking about what the right message is for the individuals that are involved in your group. Those decisions can be made based on the basic facts of them, their motivations, their actual capacity to be able to support you, because obviously you only want to ask the appropriate message to the appropriate person. In that sense, it could be really worthwhile mapping out your network. I would recommend literally drawing this out if you have a moment as well. Essentially, if you can work out, right, okay, who knows our group, who's aware of our group, who interacts with us, even if they only know part of what we do, and then you'll have all of the different people, and everyone interacts with someone. So we've all got some of these people on our list, if not all of the ones that are given as examples here. And then it's worth thinking, right, okay, what can I ask this segment to do? And it definitely, won't necessarily be appropriate for you to ask all of them to donate. For example, if they're a partner, or if we work with vulnerable people or young people, then maybe for them, the best message is to ask them to do a fundraiser for you, or to share a Facebook post. Absolutely everyone in your network can at least help you promote what you're doing. So it's really worth thinking about what's the most relevant ask for them. This is one group that was part of the first 2 years of the Wells programme. So they're based in Bridgend. They were very much lasting hand to mouth, and they had one guy that was basically giving them 50 quid every other year or so, and they'd never really sought support from individuals before. They were quite uncomfortable about asking for money, and essentially then it was the £200 match funding that gave them the confidence to start asking, because then that is a really good incentive, an excuse to get in touch with people, to say, look, we've got a great new donation page. Would you like to support us? It's the best time to do so, because even if you just donate £2, that can become £4 or £4.50 with gift aid. They did it in a really healthy way, in that they all divided up responsibilities. So someone did the thank you, someone made an appeal page, someone did the Facebook post, so it wasn't a burden for anyone. And they also fundraised through existing events as well. So they'd often do free coffee mornings, for example. And so they'd have a volunteer with a laptop on the side and encourage voluntary contributions to that as well. So obviously you need to be able to promote your work to the people in your network in the way you feel that is best. So the first thing to do is to make sure that you have a really strong donation page. To do that, we recommend that you break it down into a few different elements. But essentially, if you can cover why your group is needed, what it is that you actually do, why do you need funding, and what's the outcome of that funding, then that just gets a really, really clear message across to the people that support you, and they'll just understand what the money's going towards. The strong destination pages, I'd say, also include a little quote or a testimony or a case study of someone the group works with or a volunteer that's involved with them, just to really help them, make it as human as possible, to make it really clear about an example of someone that, your group works with or benefits as well. Direct debits are definitely something to work to encourage all the year round as well. Anything you can do to encourage regular support is great. In this breakdown of examples for how much people can support you, it's worth one of them being a monthly example. So, for example, £10 a month will support us to be able to do this. The groups in Wales, I'd say, that have done best at direct debits, and the 3 examples here have done very well. They've made it really tangible. So obviously that's really easy for some groups, like part of Food Bank over here. It's really easy for them because obviously they can put an exact figure on how much it takes to feed a family of 4 for a month. Other groups, you can't put a figure like that against what you do. Maybe it's a little bit less tangible, but it's still worth giving people an idea to say, we'll go towards this, or for example, it would subsidise this. So for example, other groups have maybe do a class for foster kids, it's just an example, and so the direct debit subsidise that. Anything you can do to make it tangible, all the better. And essentially with direct debits, the key message is to make sure that you make it clear. Just to have a pot of money there would be so helpful, because then you'll never have to turn anyone away that wants to get involved. If an urgent cost comes up, then you'll always be able to meet that need as well. We're in a very fortunate position today where we have lots of different communication methods. I deliver training on each of these in more detail usually, but social media, essentially, the more visual you can make it, the better. There are lots of free resources out there. If you use Facebook, it's really worth scheduling messages. If you want to make really effective visual resources, try Canva, which is on the screen there, because that is a really good free site to use, and we use it ourselves. In terms of traditional media, we have lots of groups that ask us about how to get, say, an appeal into local press. The link there is part of our site now, where we have a whole list of papers under Wales. There'll be a big list, by no means all newspapers, but a good amount. And each name on that list then is a link that can take you directly to the part of that website where you can submit your news article. It means if you've gone to the effort of making a paragraph or 2 for one newspaper, you can, a few more clicks of the button, send it to 10. You're more likely to get it into one, even if it's an online article, which they often are as well these days. Newsletters as well. 1/3 of online donations are because of an email. Loads of groups are quite intimidated by the idea of doing a newsletter, but it doesn't have to be a monthly thing. It could be something that 3 times a year you send around something the size of an A4 page by email that is an update on what you're doing, but also says, how you've spent previous funding and whatever is your next call to action as well. This is a North Wales group who have used video in particular really well. So every appeal page can have videos on it, so it's really, really worthwhile you including one if you can. Some groups will literally just film one on a mobile phone. Other groups have really professional videos. Whatever works best for you. This group did a film of their community band that they wanted to send to take part in an event. They then also filmed the band saying thank you for all the donors that said that. But yeah, some videos are literally just volunteers chatting about how much the project means to them and they wanted to continue, or others will say show a building that they're trying to renovate. Whatever it is that's relevant, it's worth thinking about whether video can aid that as well. So I just want to talk now for a couple of minutes about fundraisers and then appeals. So fundraisers are really, really worthwhile because essentially it's less work for you, because you're having individuals who themselves are asking for donations. You're not having to ask for donations. And what will happen is people will choose to support their loved one that wouldn't necessarily support your group directly, either because they haven't heard from you before, or they are already supporting other causes. Most people will still support a loved one. So on average in Localgiving, there'll be 16 people that support a fundraiser that would never have supported your group. So it's a really easy way to expand your network and see that money coming in as well, without you having to do, put a lot of time in. Essentially, you just thank the fundraiser when they're done. Group fundraisers are also something to consider for groups that feel uncomfortable but asking their network to do fundraisers. then you could look at asking a group of people to do one. So for example, groups that work with young people, group fundraisers work really well because maybe there's a group of 5 young people that want to get together, do a challenge together, and then it's no pressure on any of them to raise the target alone. They're just each contributing a few donors to that target, and it can be something really fun for them to do as well. In terms of fundraising ideas, I'll give you a lot more information on this, but essentially there are existing third-party events, so things like runs and cycling that we all hear about, existing events that people can sign up to. A lot of those have sign-up fees though. Maybe that's not feasible for someone, or maybe something physical is just not up that person's street. So if that's the case, they can come up with a supporter-led event, and by that I mean a fundraiser completely of their own deciding and choice. It could be completely random, it could be the smallest coffee morning, it could be the longest year-long event, with something that's a personal challenge to them, or just something that's interesting to them that they put a target against. The image on the right there is a group where someone was involved with the group, then they decided they wanted to do a challenge for them. They loved cycling, they took their bike, and completely free for them to do. They cycled it around the village halls that group had performed in that year. So it was something personal to the group. They shared it with everyone they knew. The group shared it with everyone that they knew too, and who did absolutely really well. The other option then is that you can organise your own event as well. Now, obviously, something like arranging a fundraising challenge or event as a group takes time. There are loads of ways to save time in doing that, particularly by making it relevant and easy. For example, if your volunteers already having to do something like decorating or clearing an area, then why not make that a fundraising challenge? Or if you're already doing something impressive as a group, then why not, effectively sponsor yourself to deliver a slightly higher level. For example, if you give a certain amount of volunteering hours over the next 6 months, ask people to sponsor you to give a high number of volunteering hours. Or you could do just a fundraiser that's relevant. For example, the Snowdonia Society did a fundraiser where people could meet, they could walk up and down 3 peaks of Snowdon, and they do a litter pick along the way, which fitted with the group's priority of keeping Snowdon clean as well. There are lots of ideas around fundraisers, so if you do want to do your own, I definitely suggest having a conversation with me, because there'll be ways I can suggest to save time on that. Some groups entirely focus on fundraisers, and the Paul Popham Fund, which are a Swansea group, know that they work best for them, so that is pretty much what they focus on. Other groups like Recovery Cymru have been very clever in how they've done that, in that they've made it clear what a certain amount equates to. So they worked out that it costs £300 for them to offer a day of support, and then ask the people who've gone through their services to raise enough money for someone else to have a day of support. In a similar way, it's really worthwhile you as a group coming up with ideas for what a fundraising amount equates to, because otherwise fundraisers pluck a random figure out the air. But say you can give them a reason for why they have to raise every pound of a £250 target, then that's perfect, and they'll be able to include that on their fundraiser page. So very quickly, we'll just look at appeals as well. Essentially, the question I probably get asked most with appeals is what people should set as their target. I wouldn't recommend doing an appeal for any less than 500 quid, because otherwise it's not really worth your time in getting it off the ground. But equally, I would never do an appeal for more than £10,000, and usually I recommend that groups don't do an appeal for more than £5,000 in one go. If you do need to raise more than that, it's definitely worth doing multiple appeals rather than it all in one appeal. And essentially that's because if I'm someone that can only ever afford to donate £5 to you, then it's going to seem like the tiniest drop in the water. It's going to seem like it's not going to make any difference. And, essentially it just goes, it's just much more encouraging if a donor can see that they've made a target bar go up. There is also something called the 30% rule, which is that if you manage to raise the first third of your appeal, then you're likely to get the whole way. There are ways to help you get off the mark in that sense, such as getting your kind of key network like volunteers to support you at the start and make it encouraging to new donors when they sign up as well, so that they can see it's off by 0 much straight away. The other option is that you can add offline donations too. So say you've got cash and checks from people alongside this, you can always add them as offline donations, We can't double offline donations, but they can still be represented in your target bar. And also, if you've already got funding toward it already, so say you've got a grant towards part of it, you could always add that as an offline donation and you're off that 0 March straight away. And there are other things to consider too, such as putting it into anniversaries or using awareness dates as an excuse to encourage people to support your appeal. It is a group who needed to raise money to build a wildflower garden. They had never done fundraising before. They really weren't comfortable with social media, and so we came up with a whole plan of simple things that weren't online for them to promote. And then through their online appeal, they had lots of support. They did things such as flyers in plant boxes. They approached employers around the park whose employees might come enjoy the garden at lunch break. Lots of traditional things like that to point people to their online appeal. And they then raised, an awful lot of money for people who hadn't done fundraising before. So anything you've got that you prefer to work with, then just let us know and we can help you with that. You can find examples of similar groups and what they're doing on Local Giving. On Local Giving, there will always be this search bar. So feel free to type in some keywords, particularly if you're part of a wider network of groups and you want to see if other ones have signed up. We also have a YouTube channel which has lots of tutorials on it. There'll be tutorials that go into much more detail than this on fundraisers and appeals that you can watch there. They're just 15 minutes or 30 minutes, so it's really worth having a look. This webinar will also be on that YouTube channel when I've finished recording as well. So essentially, I'll share that with you afterwards, and that is there for you too. So in terms of actions to start off online fundraising, if you're not a member already, then it's definitely worth considering signing up. The link to it is on that page. When you get to the payment section, you can add the promo code, which is Wales100, and that will help you bypass the payment section. If you're already a member or you've just become a member, the first thing to do is obviously to have a really strong donation page, and then you can start promoting the link to your donation page straight away. It's worth setting up things like donate buttons and having a thank you message prepared for those first donations. You can also save thank you templates. Any questions on that, just let me know. And essentially then it's just deciding what you want to fundraise for first. Do you want to try and appeal? Do you want to do fundraisers? It's definitely worth trying both throughout your free year so you know what's best for you. And then it's just a case of taking advantage of all of the opportunities that you have for training and match fund and prizes as well throughout the time. So if you do have any questions, put them in the chat box there as well beside the webinar. But these are also my contact details on the left, or the contact details of our general helpline too. If you ever just have a quick urgent query, it's definitely worth contacting the helpline if you don't want to wait for me to get back to a voicemail, but I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you need to go and feed back to your group and they come up with questions that we haven't covered, then let me know, and I can also give you information if you ever need it to present to trustees and boards and things like that as well, if they really need to see what it is and we're able to sign up. But yeah, essentially you've got this free year of help, so make the most of it. If you need help, get in touch. I'll regularly check in with you anyway, but just feel free to get in touch at any time when you need extra support. All right, thank you very much.